Hey, I'm Tom Scullen, and welcome back to Like My Anime, the podcast where we talk about language learning through the lens of anime, manga, video games, and whatever else keeps us chasing fluency without losing our minds. If you've ever convinced yourself that binging 12 episodes of One Piece on a Sunday was studying, this episode's for you. Today, we're diving into the winter 2025 anime season, but not just from a fan perspective. I'm breaking it down as a Japanese learner. Which shows helped me level up, which ones fried my brain, and which ones were sneakily great for practice, even if they weren't on anyone's radar. Now, I'm not here to tell you what's objectively good or recite JLPT vocab lists. This is about how I used anime as a learning tool, what worked, what didn't, and how you can copy my homework. We'll look at dialogue clarity and naturalness, JLPT level estimates based on learn natively and my own intuition as a language teacher, study techniques I used for each show, and why some anime were better because of their emotional tone and pacing, not in spite of it. And don't worry, no major spoilers. I might mention setups or character dynamics, but I won't ruin the plot. So let's start with a confession. For the longest time, I treated anime the way I treat snacks, rewarding myself for having done something productive. And at some point, I convinced myself that watching anime was productive. Because, hey, I'm hearing Japanese, right? There's this moment early in most learners' journey when we get tired of apps, grammar drills, and boring textbooks. And anime feels like the holy grail. It's entertaining, immersive, and it's got that magic ingredient, natural Japanese speech aimed at first language speakers. What could go wrong? Yes, you're getting exposure. Yes, your ears are adjusting. But if you're just putting on anime in the background while you zone out on your phone, it's not studying. It's doom scrolling with a soundtrack. I'd finish entire seasons and couldn't recall a single new word. I felt like I was improving, but nothing actually stuck. And that makes sense. According to Paul Nation, a vocabulary acquisition researcher, just hearing or seeing words doesn't lead to acquisition. You need repetition, focus, and interaction with the word to commit it to long-term memory. Watching anime with subs and no strategy, it's exposure, not acquisition. And that's the trap. You feel busy. You feel like you're doing something. But in reality, you're not building anything unless you're intentionally engaging with the language. So what changed? Honestly, I burned out. I hit a plateau where even authentic material wasn't fun anymore because I wasn't learning and I wasn't relaxing either. After a day at work, immersed in Japanese, I'd turn on an anime and feel guilty for not understanding more. So eventually, I just stopped. I'd come home and use the time I could have been studying as a Japanese free zone and just binge YouTube videos for hours. Here's why it was especially frustrating. Just hearing words isn't enough, especially if you don't know most of them. A 2009 study by Webb and Rogers analyzed the vocabulary demands of movies and found that you need knowledge of about 3,000 word families to understand 95% of the vocabulary in most films. For 98% coverage, which is where true comprehension and enjoyment happens, kind of like your own first language, that number jumps even higher. In other words, if you don't know at least a few thousand high-frequency words, you're going to be relying on subtitles, or if it's too hard for you, zoning out entirely. You might catch a phrase here or there, but your brain doesn't have enough known words to fill in the gaps. I stopped thinking of anime as a reward for studying and started treating it like a training tool, a gym for my listening, pronunciation, and comprehension muscles. That Webb and Rogers study helped me realize that I couldn't just watch any anime passively and hope the language would sink in. I needed to bridge that vocabulary gap, and the right kinds of shows could help me do that. When I approached anime and other Japanese media with purpose, it became more fun. I wasn't frustrated that I missed a line. I was curious. Why didn't I understand that? Was it the vocab, grammar, or was the character's way of speaking doing something I hadn't picked up on? I started noticing patterns, characters reusing phrases, differences between how people speak to friends versus crushes versus coworkers. I'd shadow lines, rewind short scenes, write down expressions that felt important or useful. And slowly, things started to click. Anime became something in between entertainment and study. Not a slog, not a guilty pleasure, but a space where learning could feel alive. That's the philosophy I'm bringing to today's episode. So if you're anywhere between pre-N5 thinking about learning Japanese and solid N3 or even up around N2, I promise you'll get something out of this. This is a learner's guide to anime that actually helps you grow, no matter where you're starting from. And if you're already upper intermediate or advanced, this episode still might help you spot shows worth using or help you recommend good ones to people in your study group who aren't living in Japanese 24/7. So let's talk about what made this season special. Because while winter 2025 might not have had one big breakout hit, it had a lot of strong contenders for language learners. Shows with clear dialogue, characters who didn't scream every line, mostly, and narration you can actually understand. Vocab that you'll hear again and again in real life, not just in fantasy taverns or fight scenes. Let's start with the heavy hitters, shows I went deep in on, either because they were rich with learning potential or because I just couldn't stop watching them. Okay, first up on our list, Medalist. I went into Medalist expecting a basic underdog sports anime and ended up getting hit with emotional resonance, gorgeous character writing, and some seriously good Japanese for learners. The show follows a figure skater and her coach, and it's got all the usual tropes, grit, failure, motivation, but the delivery way more grounded than you'd expect. What makes it especially great for language learners is how often characters repeat emotionally charged phrases. They'll use a word in self-talk, then again in dialogue, then again in narration. There's a scene where the coach is trying to convince the skater not to give up. The delivery is full of passion without being hard to follow. Because it's emotionally driven, you start recognizing intonation shifts. You can start to hear hope, fear, frustration, all wrapped up in the language that's totally usable in everyday life. It's what I call motivational Japanese. And if you're the kind of learner who thrives on vibes, Medalist gives you plenty to work with. Lots of cute people doing cute things. Also worth noting, sports anime often introduce very specific vocabulary, the vocabulary having to do with that sport. But Medalist keeps it accessible. There are skating terms, but most of the language is about effort, support, and trust, core themes in daily interactions. Here's another shadowing tip. Try shadowing the same scene twice. First, match the words. Second, try to match the emotion. You'll start to feel where your natural rhythm deviates from an L1 speaker of Japanese, not in content, but in emotion. Okay, number 3, Ameku M.D. This one's upper N2, maybe even N1. It's a bit tricky, but it's a great show. Ameku M.D. is a serious medical drama. And I know that doesn't sound like a dream pick for language learners, but hear me out. If you're aiming for business Japanese, maybe even medical Japanese, or want exposure to formal case-style speech, this is one of the best training grounds I've found. Doctors, nurses, lawyers, they all speak in a super polite register, but they also code switch constantly depending on who they're talking to and what situation. 1 minute they're using textbook Keigo with a patient's family, the next they're bickering casually in the break room. And that shift, that's real life Japanese. What I did was pick one scene per episode to study, not the whole show, usually a case briefing or emotional confrontation. I'd transcribe it, look up unfamiliar terms, then rewatch with Japanese subs. You start noticing structural patterns like how characters frame disagreement. Even when I didn't know every word, the rhythm and phrasing told me the function of the sentence. This is key. According to cognitive load theory, learners can only retain so much info at once, but recognizing patterns reduces that load and builds intuition. But heads up, if you're below N3, this might be frustrating without subtitles. But for higher intermediate learners, it's a great stretch resource. And pro tip, don't pause too often. Watch a whole scene once through, even if you don't get everything, then rewatch it and break it down. Next up is Blue Box at about an N3 level, and it is like a warm cup of tea on a cold day. It's not flashy, it's not reinventing the wheel, but if you want to practice clear, everyday speech with lots of emotionally rich narration, it's fantastic. And if you're into both sports or romance anime, you'll find what you're looking for right here. None of this is advanced vocabulary, but it's real, emotionally resonant, and common in actual conversation, especially if you're navigating slang and want something slightly more elevated than anime trope speak. One thing, record yourself mimicking a line, then listen back. Do you match the rhythm, the softness? Do you have the same emotional weight? So Sorairo Utility. It's a lot easier than everything so far at about a N4 level. And it's cute girls doing cute things, but now with golf. And yeah, if you're a beginner or just burnout from complicated shows, Sorairo Utility is your new best friend. On the surface, it's a golf anime. But in reality, it's pure slice of life comfort food. The characters talk like real people. No one yells unless they're excited about lunch. Conversations are short, casual, and often repeat familiar structures. What really stood out to me was how good it was for passive listening. I'd put it on while cooking or doing anything else, and even when I wasn't fully focused, I'd catch phrases that stick. They're the ones you'll reach for in real conversations, and because they're delivered in a calm, slow tone, they're easy to understand, even casually. And yes, there's real research backing this up. A 2018 study by Peters and Webb found that learners could acquire vocabulary incidentally by watching TV programs, especially when the content featured high-frequency words in familiar, supportive contexts. And by supportive, they mean that from the context of the show or the conversation, you can intuit the meaning. Shows like Sorairo Utility with repetitive slice-of-life dialogue are perfect for that kind of low-stress input. Use it as a cool-down show, a wind-down listen, or even just a mental break between more intense study sessions. You'll still be learning, just without the pressure. Okay, Honey Lemon Soda. It's about an N3 level, a shoujo romance that doesn't rely on sparkles and awkward misunderstandings. It's sweet, grounded, and the dialogue is actually usable in a real Japanese high school. What I noticed most was how characters shift their tone depending on who they're speaking to. To friends, jokey and relaxed. To love interest, tentative, roundabout, nervous. That contrast gives you insight into social dynamics in speech, which isn't always obvious in classroom Japanese. There's also lots of aizuchi, the kind of back and forth meaningless words that we use in all languages to keep conversations going. Little filler reactions like, he, so nanda, sokka. It's not just vocabulary practice, it's emotional awareness. And that's huge. Language learning isn't just knowing what to say, it's understanding how and when to say it. I found myself copying lines and testing out different delivery styles. One line, 3 emotions. It's like training a new muscle. Okay, there was a lot of anime this season, and we don't have time to go through that in-depth on all of the great stuff that was out there. So let's jump into a TLDR lightning round. Shows I watched, sampled, or survived in winter 2025 that didn't quite make the full feature cut, but still have something to offer language learners. We'll break down the vibe of the show, a JLPT level, and a quick tip or how you might want to study, or why to skip it all altogether. So first up in the lightning round, Beheneko, about an N3 level, ecchi fantasy fluff with light dungeon crawling. This one's a bit more chaotic and maybe ecchi isn't the first thing you think of when you're looking for study materials, but you've got standard fantasy party banner, some overly casual speech and underdressed characters, and a weirdly high number of bath scenes where everyone reflects on their feelings using surprisingly simple grammar. Good for hearing super casual speech, maybe not so good if you're trying to study in a cafe or the library. But the one thing to use this for is listen for ending particles like sa, yone, and na in casual contexts. You'll hear plenty of them here. Another isekai, Red Ranger in Another World. This one's pretty solidly N3 too. Shonen action, isekai satire. This one feels like Power Rangers got thrown into a D&D world. Lots of exaggerated attack names, but surprisingly clean speech. The protagonist has a noble idiot energy, which makes him great for learning clear, assertive speech patterns. All of his moves are literally powered by friendship. Changing gears, I have a crush at work. N3 adult office romance. This is the anime equivalent of standing next to your senpai at the vending machine and really overthinking how to say good morning. You'll hear workplace phrases like otsukaresama desu, polite refusals, and all kinds of hedging language that's great for learners trying to navigate adult interactions in Japan. Okay, sticking with the romance. Next up, I'm marrying someone I hate, about an N3 level. Enemies to lovers with maximum passive aggression. This one's a drama-filled roller coaster where every compliment hides an insult. But the language is gold, sarcastic retorts, indirect confrontation, and that fake happy tone Japanese is so good at. If you want to learn how to argue in polite language or hear how people fight when they can't raise their voices, this is the one for you. And a language tip, study this like you'd study texting culture. So much meaning is implied, not said. And that's a language skill on its own. Next up, Sakamoto Days, an N3 action comedy. Fast-paced, funny, and surprisingly easy to follow despite the chaos. Sakamoto rarely speaks, but when he does, it's intentional. Everyone else talks a mile a minute, but clearly enough for learners to catch. Perfect for building reaction speed. So a language tip for this one, use this for shadowing, timing, not vocabulary. Try to hit your cues like a comedy sketch. Okay, this one's a cool one, but definitely really hard. Okitsura. I fell in love with an Okinawan girl. It's up there, N2+, but it's got lots of regional flavor and cultural depth. This one is visually gorgeous, emotionally sincere, and full of Okinawan vocabulary and phrasing. It's tough without subtitles, but if you're looking to break out of standard Tokyo dialect, this one's refreshing. You might not understand everything, but even the main character doesn't, so you're good there. You will get exposure to regional cadence and expressions. So language tip on this one, of course, look up Okinawan Japanese language contrast videos. It'll help you appreciate what's happening, even if you're not catching every word. And a bonus pick, just because I saw it this season, Brave Bang Bravern. It's easier, it's an N3 level, but what's the vibe on this one? A retro mecha fever dream. It's big, it's loud, it's got a scene where the CIA waterboards a gay robot. Dialogue is clear, but a bit heavy on militaristic language. Think classic 80s and 90s action movies. Learner-friendly in structure, though not always in speed or vocabulary. A tip for this one, use this to practice imperative forms and rallying cries. Bonus, it's super fun to shout along with Bravern. So yeah, winter 2025 had a little bit of everything, from bathhouse slang to regional love stories to retro robot throwdowns. Even the weird shows taught me something. Before we wrap up, I want to give a quick nod to some bigger titles. These were shows that either carried over from fall or were continuations of well-loved series. I didn't do full reviews on them this time, not because they're not worth it, but because they're already known quantities. If you've been watching anime in Japanese for a while, you've probably sampled at least one of these. And honestly, they're all solid for language learners if you're already invested in the story. So first up, Apothecary Diaries, Season 2. I recommended this one in episode 1 of the podcast, and it's still one of the best picks for formal speech, sarcastic asides, and sneaky vocabulary around medicine, hierarchy, and historical court life. Mao Mao's dry internal monologue is learner gold. Next is Dragon Ball Daima. You already know what this is. Shonen vocabulary, repetitive phrases, clear dramatic delivery. Great for beginners. Great for nostalgia. Not much has changed, and that's kind of the point. Daima is kind of Dragon Ball GT the way Toriyama would have done it. Okay, I gotta take a breath to get this one. The 100 girlfriends who really, 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 really love you. Still arguably the best harem anime out there. Lots of different speech patterns, tons of personality shifts with each one of the girls. It's like a language variety pack. So that was Winter 2025. Some surprises, some comfort picks, a couple of chaotic gremlins, but most of all, it was a reminder that anime can be both fun and functional if you approach it like a learner, not just a viewer. My personal MVPs: Medalist for delivering emotional impact without sacrificing clarity. And honestly, I'm a sucker for the cute girls doing cute things animes. So Sorairo Utility might just be my new background listening go-to when I want to absorb Japanese without burning out. But I didn't watch everything. No one can, hopefully. So I want to hear from you. What anime helped you with Japanese this season? What shows surprised you, challenged you, or snuck new words into your brain without warning? Leave a comment, shoot me a DM, or come hang out in the Like My Anime community over on Patreon. I'd love to feature some of your picks in the future. Next time, I'll be previewing the spring 2025 anime season, looking ahead to what might be worth your study time, your attention span, or at least a few hours of distracted passive learning. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss it. If you like this episode, rating the show or sharing it with another language learner really helps us out. And if you want bonus content, study guides, or just want to support the show, you can join the Patreon at patreon.com/likemyanime. Thanks for spending time with me today. And remember, you're learning way more than just Japanese when you study with anime. お疲れ様。